Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me for yet another new partner spotlight. Today, we're looking at the financial planning tool Voyant. I've invited my friend Brian today. He is the director of North America for Voyant, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how you can use Voyant to get your client holistic financial planning. And so, Brian, are you there?
I am, Austin.
All right. Good afternoon, Brian. Thank you for joining us today. Just a couple of questions to get a little bit to know about you and Voyant. I wanted to start off by just for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what your journey was like into this industry, and how did you get started with Voyant?
Wonderful. And thanks for the opportunity to have us. Well, just to date myself a little bit, I've been in the software industry since 1997. Most of that time has been on the startup side of the world, working with venture capital firms, raising money, launching new products, et cetera. Surprisingly, my connection to Voyant's been in the making for quite some time. Our CEO and I have children that are the same age, go to the same schools, play the same sports. So Dave and I are friends. We've actually coached flag football together, but never really talked about work and what we did. And one day at our boys' baseball practices, Dave overheard me talking to a company about a position. He asked what I did. I asked what he did. And now here we are 4.5 years later. I'm still the director of sales for North America for Voyant, and it's been a blast.
Awesome. So, Brian, you and I had met previously, and I thought Voyant had a kind of an interesting story. So you guys are a US-based company, but had some real early success overseas. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. It is quite interesting, to say the least. Most people in the U.S. don't know that Voyant's been in the providing financial planning solutions for well over 12 years. We launched the company in 2008, which turned out at that time to be one of the worst times to launch a software product in the financial services space. We had a successful pilot going with the large enterprise here, but obviously with the market crash and consolidation taking place in the banking industry, we knew there were no new product initiatives going to take place anytime soon. So we looked around the world and said, where is there regulation taking place where Voyant solutions can really help address it? So about that time, there were conversations being held in the United Kingdom around regulation that would change the rules, how financial advisors describe their services and the way that UK consumers pay for them. Nowadays, this is commonly referred to as the RDR, or the Retail Distribution Review. It's been in effect since December of 2012, and its main purpose is to ensure financial products and services delivered to clients are clear, transparent, and meets their needs. So this includes transparent charging statements and really the role of fiduciary, which is something that's being obviously talked about in the fintech financial planning space for some time. So the one way an advisor is really able to protect themselves nowadays from any litigation from a client that says, you sold me this product or you sold me that product, was to be able to tie that to a recommendation that was made on a holistic financial plan. So fast forward today, we're the market leader in the United Kingdom with some 2,500 plus advisor firms that use Voyant. That ranges from Lloyd's Bank to Schroders to IFAs and wealth management networks like St. James Place. We're the market leader in Ireland with Bank of Ireland as a client and individual IFAs there. We launched in Canada in 2017 and now have 3 of the top 5 big banks as customers. That includes BMO and Toronto Dominion, and obviously various wealth firms, individual advisors all across Canada. We're soon launching in Singapore and Hong Kong, Australia, and all the while, like you said, we've slowly been working here in the U.S. market since we are Austin based. So while we've really enjoyed the international travel, we clearly know the other players that are in the space here. Obviously, COVID has changed travel for us with the drive and need towards digital planning solutions, both for advisors and clients alike in the U.S.
Wow. Quite the impressive resume there, Brian. You guys are definitely can brag about being that worldwide presence. I kind of want to ask this next question because I think it's probably on a lot of advisors' minds, particularly ones that are on the webinar with us today. And let's just say, for example, that I'm an advisor. I've been advising for X number of years, and I already have a financial planning tool that I'm somewhat comfortable with. It could it be better? Yes, of course. But what would you say to me as an advisor? What makes Voyant different than the financial planning tool that I'm probably already using?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I guess just at a high level, right? Voyant solutions are purely web-based. They're able to resize and fit to, whatever it is you're having that conversation with the client about or doing your planning. So whether that's a desktop, that's an iPad, a phone, even though I wouldn't advise planning on a phone. We leverage the latest technologies like pinch, swipe, and obviously I'll demonstrate some of these products today and just, Voyant's solutions are visual in nature, extremely interactive. So they really help that advisor create a collaborative conversation with their client. There's the ability to easily input data into the system and get immediate feedback with charts, the ability to compare plans, create what-if scenarios, and really combine both goal and event-based planning holistically. So obviously we have a much broader concept of our solutions that include Voyant Game, which is both a digital version and an actual board game, something called Voyant Snapshot. I'll show some of these in the presentation before we get into the demo.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great transition into that. I think you've definitely piqued our interest. So go ahead and start off with just a little bit about what Voyant is and how it's a great financial planning tool.
So I'm just going to go over a high level real quick of some of the components that really make up Voyant solutions. Obviously, I'm going to be spending today mostly talking about Voyant AdviserGo, but I'd like everyone online just to understand kind of how the holistic approach that we take, not only for the advisors, but also for the clients and the type of engagement that we believe organizations should be having nowadays. So I'll demo AdviserGo. Obviously, an extremely powerful solution for advisors, very interactive, being able to move events, things around on a timeline, probably one of the most powerful pieces of software that we've seen advisors completely change from around trying to sell products to actually providing holistic advice. Some pieces on here that are extremely powerful that I'll walk through. Timeline is really key. And a real valuable area to have a conversation. Obviously, the ability to drill into some charts and do some things that we call let's see, so we can really focus on particular, plan assets, incomes, or liabilities. Different types of scenarios that you can run using the product. So I can look at multiple plans on a simple screen. This really gives me the ability to let a client visually see just without having to dive deep into the numbers, even though we can do that. Why one recommendation over current status may be the right approach to take. Voyant Snapshot is really more on the client side. So this is a client portal that gives a client the ability to log in and just kind of say, where am I with the summary of all my, my assets at the end of the market of the day? Am I on plan? Am I not on plan? That kind of thing. And then for onboarding, there's been a lot of talk about digitalization and gamification in the fintech space. We've actually launched what we call Voyant Game, which really gives a client the ability to self-describe. So we can send an invite to a client, they can log in, they can play, quote, the game, where they can say, these are my goals, these are my dreams, these are the plans that I have. And as they go through playing that game, what they're actually doing is filling out the information on the AdviserGo side for the advisor to work with when they get to the end. So when they do have that first initial meeting, they've got a better understanding about who that client is and what are their goals are and what type of value of advice that the advisor can give. Just like we've done that digitally, we've also done that as a board game. So it's a different approach. We've obviously learned that, the fun thing behind giving the board game is you're always guaranteed that second meeting. So, I meet you as a client, I give you the board game, I say, hey, take this home, sit down with the wife or the family, lay this thing out, play the game, put your ideas and dreams together. When you're done, take a picture and send it to me. That way, when the advisor gets it, they can go on AdviserGo, recreate everything that was just provided while the client did that in the comfort of their own home. Again, gives them the ability to really start to get into that client's head. So that meeting really becomes something more collaborative than give me some financial statements. How much money do you have? That kind of thing. So it really starts to build trust and really an understanding of who that individual is. And then again, I think the one thing that we talk with firms about is, we are a visualization tool. It's not our job or desire to replace the advisor. It's our job and desire to help the advisor be more collaborative, be more holistic in their planning approach, and really move the conversation away from selling investments to actually planning for someone's life. Because when a client can actually see the impact and changes of an investment strategy or some of those things, it's something they're able to really understand and adopt more without having to dive deep into the numbers. With that being said, let me go ahead and just jump into AdviserGo. So I've logged into AdviserGo. Obviously, you can see something very visual here. In front of me, I've always land in the first place of what we call dashboard. Dashboard really always starts off with cash flow. And I've got kind of a detailed view here. Probably should have started off more simplistically, but I've got a simple view of cash flow. And I can move over any years to see what the components of cash flow are, including the shortfall, the total need, the basic need. And I can dive into the details of some of those pieces further. Again, if I'm doing this on an iPad or what have you, I can just use swipe, but our charting consists of obviously cash flow. I can look at an asset chart. I can talk about expenses. I can look at debts, net worth in the system. Obviously, I can have a conversation about taxes, and I can get back into cash flow. I can talk about this simplistically. I can get to a detailed view of these items. So as I hover over a given year, I can see what components of cash flow are coming in. And if I want to really get into the details of that given year, I can just double click into that year and get to the nuts and bolts of it all. So I can have a conversation about cash flow for this year. I can have a conversation about expenses and the details of those expenses. Same thing on investments, retirement, anything about property, any protection, anything around assets, and taxes. And again, we also have a slider bar that if I want to stay in this conversation, I can just move around on a year by year basis to get to that level of detail. And again, I can just jump back out of the year view and get back in here. Obviously, on the bottom left side, you'll see kind of the details about this family and everything that you know. So we've got John and Julia Campbell. We've got Alex and Martina. We've got some goals here in the system. Obviously, some of these goals are being met 100% and some are not. We've got some incomes in the system, some savings and investments, some retirement, college. Obviously, these are events. We've got some property in the system with some associated debts. You'll notice in our platform, anything where you have the ability to link things to assets, you can actually link debts, you can link expenses, you can link income if this were a rental property. And the reason being is as you're doing planning as an advisor, maybe in the future, the client wants to sell these properties. The system is smart enough to know, sell the property, pay off the mortgage, stop all the associated expenses and income that may be tied to this particular asset. So this solution in general, easily white labelable. So your firm's colors, your firm's brand obviously could come up here where the Voyant sits. We also have the ability to bring in your market assumptions and any products as an organization that you may have. So you can automatically have those in here. So this Voyant looks, feels, and breathes like it's your own firm's software. I spoke about timeline. Timeline is really powerful. And the reason being is this lets you really get into a collaborative conversation with the client and see what kind of impact things have in the system. So for example, just to keep this really easy, obviously we've got a lot of shortfall in here, and we know that shortfall really cuts off when John retires at the age of 65. So what if I just went to John and said, John, instead of retiring at the age of 65, why don't we retire at the age of 70 when you've got this midlife crisis here of a Porsche that you'd like to buy? And in doing so, I've completely redrawn the chart out. Obviously, we still have shortfall, but you can see cash flow extends up until retirement. So I know this isn't a very good plan to use from a demo perspective, but again, really something that's powerful just to have a conversation, even if we're talking about college and kids and when they stop and when they graduate. Maybe there's 2 more years of grad school that get included in these items. So extremely powerful for timeline. Again, goals on the left-hand side. Goals obviously have a financial value that need to be tied to them. Events on the right-hand side. Events don't necessarily need to have a cash component tied to them. It may be just something that's important to the client that every time you meet, you want to bring that conversation up. Could be a yacht in the future or whatever it is. Again, this was the midlife crisis. Are we still about the midlife crisis? Do we think we want the car? If we've decided that we're not going to do that, we can just come delete the event, get that off the timeline. The car is now gone. We don't need to have that conversation anymore. Let's See is pretty powerful. We really get to dive now into the charts themselves. Really love this because it allows advisors to focus on detailed conversations about particular areas of interest. And again, that could be cash flow, assets, expenses. But again, I can come here and hide all of everything, just show complete shortfall in the system and have a conversation about employment as it relates to cash flow in the life of this plan. Or maybe I just want to talk about the retirement savings and really when that kicks in over the life of the holistic plan that I have. Or maybe a combination of retirement savings and Social Security, or just Social Security. So really, really flexible, again, really visual, something that a lot of our advisors really like to take advantage of. And again, we always have the items down here on the timeline, so it's something that we can revert back to in the conversation without leaving the screen. Let's See also gives us the ability to look at dual charts of a particular plan, so I can have a conversation of cash flow versus expenses. And I can go between the two and obviously drive in. If I want to click, I can click back in there and get back to that year view of the Let's See, or I can get back to the dual chart view of that. Not only can I see that for a single plan, but I can also do that to compare plans. So if I've got multiple plans in the system that I'd like to have a conversation about, maybe there was the base plan, which is here's everything I know about you today, Mr. Client, versus there may be a different strategy of different plans that maybe we've talked about. So maybe I want to change my investment strategy for college. I don't necessarily know that these are going to be any different because this is a demo account, but obviously the ability to visualize that conversation. And when we get into plan comparison, the even better side of things is when I drill in, now I can jump on either side of the plan and have that conversation about the difference between maybe investments from one plan or to the other. So again, very visual, very powerful, very easy to use, and something a client can relate to without having to stare at a PDF and really try to understand what you just presented to me. Legacy planning gets into estate planning. So we can have planned legacies. We can have, if John dies today, Julia dies today, if they both die today, obviously different scenarios that could be run. We have different views as it relates to this. So obviously most people just like workflows and kind of flow charts. So we've got a flow chart view to see what this plan legacy looks like. I could run a scenario on any of these for John, for the family. We can see what that total transfer of wealth looks like, not only at a simple view, but I can also jump into the detailed view. And again, I can expand all of these if I want, really get into all of the different distributions that take place for the estate through the legacy. And again, I can either do that from a single view, or I can go do a comparison view. So I could say that base plan or a different plan that was created, and even a different plan or the same plan, but then I can say, let's just have a conversation around what the plan legacy differences are between John dying when we expect and what that transfers wealth if John were to die today. Again, a conversation that can really be focused around insurance and really kind of getting the family to understand what those needs maybe are, as they start thinking about their life holistically and the type of advice and services and products that they could leverage. Insights are just kind of scenarios that are pre-canned in the system. What type of investment return may I need in the market, depending on how bad or good or bad this plan is. The system's going to tell us we don't even have, there's nothing we can do that's over a 50% return. But I could go run a life needs analysis for those that actually deal with insurance. So again, if John died today, if Lisa died today, what type of insurance does this family need in order to make sure they can continue to live the lifestyle that they want? And obviously others that are out here. Probably one that's actually coming from a client from a very long time ago is the market crash simulator. So we have advisors out there that need to go run, to go see, is this plan market crash proof? I think the default in the system is a one-time market correction of 35%. But I can just say at the age of 75, if we go simulate this shortfall, Is there a difference in the plan if we have a simulation, and obviously just on how this plan is, there's not. So different types of insights that we give you the ability to run. What ifs, this is kind of really some real powerful stuff here. So when you saw the ability to compare plans, we've got some guided plan creations of what if I buy a home, what if I right size a home and do some of these things. Just as well, we also give you the ability to just to create another plan from a plan already. So I'm just going to make one up, move to Florida. Let's say I want to take the information that I already have that comes from the retire later plan, create this plan. I've just created a brand new plan with all of that information that's called Move to Florida. Now I can come in here, make whatever changes I want. And obviously one thing I've missed here talking a million miles an hour is how do you put all this information in the system? So everything that we do is leveraged using Google's material design, meaning it comes in by the plus button. So down on the right-hand side, just by the plus button, anything that you want to put into Voyant, it is all kind of driven, so to speak, through solution components. So if it's a savings in retirement, what type of savings in retirement is it? What's the name of it? We don't need account numbers or any of those pieces. What type of growth do you anticipate? Is this going to be a particular rate? Are we going to do a portfolio? Are there particular holdings that make this up? When do we want to actually have this? Are there any steps involved? Voyant has the ability to do step up and step down on investments, on withdrawals. Is there a withdrawal limit for this particular savings? And is it a planned withdrawal? So a lot of detailed functionality in the system. Again, can do everything it needs to do for an advisor. But again, we still like to keep things as visual as possible to kind of keep those simplistic. And then obviously reports. If you're a solution in the fintech space, you better be able to generate a report nowadays. So obviously we can generate reports. I can also generate a report that comes from multiple plans. So I can pick out what those are. That can sit there and show up for me and generate. And at the end of the day, I still have something I can send the client home with that they can go see. Finally, I think one thing to say, we've seen through all of the use cases with our clients around the world, the one thing that really stands out is every time an advisor walks a client through this visually in the office, up on a screen somewhere, doing a Zoom meeting, the client always asks, can I go home and play with that? And the answer is yes. All the advisor has to do is actually invite the client to the plan and just kind of walking through the scenario here. So let me just make a name up here. So john@gmail.com. As the advisor, I get the ability to set the permissions. So I can hide all of these plans if I want. I'm not ready to have a conversation with you yet. Or I can say, I'm going to share that Move to Florida plan with you and go about that process. There's either a PIN for an extra layer of security that we can send to the client just because we know some families have shared email services that they use. So that's something I can text to you, or I can just deliver that myself and you have access to the plan. So a lot of capability exists. Obviously we do webinars at the end of the week, every week, to really get a little bit more into the details, but I hope that's been valuable thus far.
All right, thanks, Brian. Can you share a little bit with us on how this all works with Redtail? How does this integration between the two platforms work?
Yeah, would love to. So this is our first iteration. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we're doing, but would love to do that. So the one thing that we've had a lot of our users here in the U.S. That have Redtail come to us and say, hey, I don't want to start from scratch. How can you guys help me at least accelerate the planning process and plan creation process? So today we've got a one-way integration into Redtail. I'm going to just kind of log in real quick into the environment. Here, let me sign out of, make sure I'm on the right server here. Yep, I'm in integrations. Let me log in. So once a client comes and starts a free trial of Voyant, all we do is reach out to say is, hey, do you have Redtail? And if you do, we'll turn on that integration for you. Once an advisor comes in, all they do is come to the plus button, import client. We'll turn the Redtail option for them. All they have to go do is search for one of their users or one of their clients they have in Redtail. The initial integration login is just going to be your Redtail username and password. Once you enter that correctly, you get to the Redtail client search screen. I'm going to bring in Andrew McCain, or go search for Andrew McCain. I'm going to bring him in. We have a workflow design just because we know sometimes users aren't always the greatest in inputting data into the system. So we do some checks just to make sure that as that information comes over, it's set up appropriately and comes over into Voyant the right way. So it looks like we've got 2 accounts. We can't necessarily identify what they are. Let's go ahead and start the process. So we know that we've got a sole 401k. So I'm just going to say I've got a retirement plan that's a 401k. And I've got some account. We're going to say that some account is going to be a savings and investment account. And let's just say that that's an investment. We're then going to make a call back to the system and say, okay, who is this for? This is for Andrew. And this is for Allison. And here's all the information that we have in Redtail about this particular client. I can choose if I want to not have this information imported in, or I can say, let's just add it all into the system. I'm going to hit done, and Voyant's going to go out and automatically import all that information in here. So here we are. We've got Andrew and Allison. We've got some accounts. We automatically create the cash sweep account for them. We've got some retirement plans that have been brought in. We've got a house. We've got a car. And now as an advisor, I've got something that at least I can start working with. Again, the easiest thing to do, you'll see, is we've already created a cash flow chart. We've already created an asset chart, an expenses chart. Obviously, we've got some debt, a net worth chart, a planned worth. So what is everything in the system less expenses? Obviously, we've got some taxes in the system on a year-by-year basis. And now as the advisor, here I can start adding information to kind of make this plan more holistic and real to the client. The one thing I can say also, if information is updated in Redtail, more assets or details may come in. The ability for Voyant to, again, go import the client, go search the client again, bring over the additional information that may have been precluded the first time, brings that in, and then obviously makes that plan more holistic in nature.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.